Charles Darwin was a British natural scientist and biologist who laid down the framework for the theory of evolution as well as the process of natural selection. Through his observations and studies of birds, plants, and fossils, Darwin believed that the species we know today had gradually evolved from common ancestors. Darwin's theory of evolution and the process of natural selection later became known simply as Darwinism. And eventually, after years of scientific investigation, Darwin publicly introduced his best-known work on the origin of species. Despite all the religious controversy surrounding his work, DNA studies continue to provide scientific evidence for his theory of evolution. Throughout the years, humanity has changed a lot. From apes into humans, from simple into complex beings, there are serious questions that could be brought up. For example, is there a nature of change? You could say yes, both scientifically and in a broader metaphysical sense. Was there a Darwinian Revolution? We would need the insights of different philosophies of scientific change to capture the whole phenomenon. For broader information, let's first discuss the contribution of Charles Darwin. Darwin played a major role in moving us to a naturalistic view of human nature. Before we expound the metaphysical view of Darwinism, or the Darwinian Revolution, let us first understand what naturalism is. Naturalism is the idea or belief that only natural laws and forces operate in the world. The mechanism that Darwin proposed for evolution is natural selection. Because resources are limited in nature, organisms with heritable traits that favor survival and reproduction tend to leave more offspring than their peers. This causes their traits to increase in frequency over generations. Natural selection is the process by which random evolutionary changes are selected for by nature in a consistent, orderly, and non-random way. This is done through the process of descent with modification, and new traits are then randomly produced. Nature carefully decides which of those new traits are kept. During the Enlightenment period in the 18th century, a natural or scientific view of the universe became common. In the West, it was still generally accepted that God had directly created the universe. But in 1859, Darwin's Origin of Species definitely shook things up. The religious community considered it blasphemy. However, within a few decades, his evolutionary model had become widely accepted within the scientific community. In the past 30 years or more, there has been a huge amount of work on people before and after Darwin. On one hand, there is the scientific theory of evolution through natural selection. This was the main topic of Origin. The Darwinian Revolution forever destroyed the old picture of humans as somehow miraculously special, symbolically and literally as touched by magic. Darwin played no less, and perhaps more of, a role in convincing people that natural selection is the key causal factor in molding and controlling human nature today. Although one should be wary of all that's claimed in his name, now there are many more critics, not necessarily religious, who are uncomfortable with this program and would reject it in part or in whole. One can make the argument that Darwin paved the way for a view of humankind that gives us no special status here on Earth. Although this was certainly not Darwin's own aim, and especially in the public domain, beliefs privileging humans persist today. Hodge had a general conclusion that maybe there was no Darwinian Revolution and that there were already paradigms of forms and function in place before Darwin. However, this was obviously false. Because of Darwin and the origin of species, major things did happen in biological science. Let's say that a complex phenomenon like the Darwinian Revolution demands many levels of understanding. Blunt instruments will fail us as we try to understand scientific change. It's necessary to tease these strands apart and consider them individually as we try to understand what's going on. There are other controversies that often involve not just the events around Darwin, but aspects of the broader picture. One of the major contributors to the line of history of evolutionary biology was named Robert J. Richards. He argued that post-Darwinian period, especially that influence of German evolutionist Ernst Haeckel, was much more Darwinian than people have recognized. In short, analyzing the Darwinian Revolution is such a worthwhile challenge and needs a lot of studying with solid evidences.